The Dutch started colonizing South Africa in 1652. From 1653 to 1822, European countries followed suit and colonized new lands. Scientists believe that 180,000 years ago, long before humans occupied other parts of the world, Africa was the origin of the modern human species. The indigenous peoples of southern Africa were nomadic nomads who roamed the land in search of food and water. Indigenous people thrived on this continent, including the original San hunter-gatherer groups, the Khoisan, the Gliomas, and the Mbuga from the south of the Zambezi Valley. In the 1590s, the San people became prosperous cattle farmers and traded with English and Dutch mariners. They bartered their sheep and cattle for copper, iron, and tobacco. When the latter began to invade the southern parts of Africa, known as Capes, indigenous settlements such as Khoi Khoi, Southwestern Cape, Namakwa, Northeastern Cape, Karana, Orange River, and Ganakwa were already present, Eastern Cape. Bartholomew Diaz set sail for southern Africa in 1486, followed by Vasco da Gama in 1497. The latter landed on St. Helena and Moselle Bay and traded with the Khoikhoi. Until the Dutch arrived at the Cape of Good Hope in 1652, the earlier traders had no conflict. For its fleets, the Dutch East India Company, Verenigd Oost-Indische Company, 1602 to 1798, established a resupply station at Cape Town. A year later, colonial administrator Jan van Riebeeck released 9 company servants to begin full-time farming on Table Mountain's eastern slope, thereby establishing a colony. Western culture, Roman Dutch law, Reformed religion, Calvinist dogma, and capitalism were all brought by the colonists. The indigenous Khoikhoi and San were impacted by permanent plans to settle in the Cape of Good Hope. Serious land ownership and livestock disputes erupted, resulting in natives being chased off their land or taken as slaves. Slaves from other parts of Africa were imported by European farmers to work the land that had been taken from local residents. The Khoikhoi people declined as a result of the loss of land and livestock, as well as the introduction of smallpox. Slaves arrived in Cape Town for the first time in 1658, all from the Indian Ocean Rim, including Java, the Malay Peninsula, Ceylon, Madagascar, and the East African coast. The San were treated as slaves because they were considered uncivilized due to their hunter-gatherer lifestyle. During the 1770s and 1780s, an extermination campaign against the San was launched. The VOC was on the verge of bankruptcy in 1795. The Cape Colony was taken over by Britain, which established the British East India Company. In June, Vice Admiral Elphinstone's fleet arrived in Simon's Bay and, with the assistance of the main British fleet, conquered the Cape at the Battle of Muizenberg. The British Empire returned the territory to the Dutch in 1803, but following the Napoleonic Wars, the former retook the Cape to protect the sea route in 1806. Blauberg was the site of the battle. The Cape became a British colony in 1806. The British conquered the Cape and kept a strategic resupply station at Cape Town. Initially, the British continued to bring African slaves to their colonists while not interfering with farmers' treatment of black workers. Slave importation to Cape Town was eventually prohibited in 1807. Slave reforms were gradually implemented in the 1820s and early 1830s, limiting masters' authority over their slaves. Slavery in the British Empire's colonial territories was gradually abolished. This reform was unpopular with Boer slave owners who needed manual labor on their farms, but slaves were finally freed on December 1, 1838. The discovery of natural resources such as gold and diamonds in the interior of South Africa caused further schisms between the British and the Boers, who had fled the Cape. Between 1899 and 1902, the South African War erupted over control of the gold-rich Boer republics. The Boers were defeated, but the British Empire was content to negotiate a political settlement with the local white community in charge of South Africa, which was established on May 31, 1910. The Union of South Africa era ended in 1961 when the country became a republic after fighting for independence.